Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to make the 270 short mag great again. What do I mean by that? Stay tuned. A couple years ago, I got my 270 short mag. I did have trouble finding ammo for it, but eventually I found some factory ammo and I used that brass to make reloads. The first handload I did was 145 grain ELDX, and I got around 3,000 feet per second with IMR 4350. Later I got the CX bullet, the Hornady CX bullet, and I was able to get around 3250, once again with IMR 4350. At the time I thought that was decent. Groups were a minute of angle, maybe a little worse, but overall I was happy with it. But then I got to messing around with a 308, and with that same weight bullet, 130 grains, I got 3,300 feet per second with TAC. And I got to thinking, man, that shouldn't be the case. Pun intended. You look at the 308 case versus the 270 short mag case, the 308 should not be shooting that bullet faster. Now there is the bigger caliber advantage, which I've talked about on the channel before, but it wouldn't be that big of a difference considering how much more powder can go in the 270 short mag. And then later I decided to shoot really heavy per caliber bullets in the 270 short mag. 165 grain ABLRs, 170 grain ballistic tips, and 175 grain Sierra tipped Game Kings. The 165 and the 170 grain bullets had no issue stabilizing at my elevation. The 175s didn't even come close to stabilizing. They flew all over the place. With the 165s, the powder that really did good was MagPro. I tried H4831, H4350, H1000. None of them got me that great a velocity. The MagPro did the best, but I never could break that 3,000 feet per second barrier. Technically, I did break the barrier, but with a lot of pressure. So without pressure, the best I could get was about 2950, maybe 2975. And then I've seen other YouTubers with the 6.8 Western, technically a little bit smaller case with less, volume inside, getting 165 and 170 grain bullets over 3,000 feet per second. I even watched somebody with factory ammo in the 6.8 Western get over 3,000 feet per second. So I'm thinking, wow. So I've said all that to say, man, I've got to figure out what I'm doing wrong here. Not that I got bad velocities, but I know there's so much more there. And that's one of the things I love to do. I'm not the channel that's going to focus on extremely tight groups. There's plenty of people doing that. It's fun at times. But to me, it's way more fun to do deep dives into the cartridge itself, the dimensions of the cartridge, its history, and also in its potential. Like, what can you get out of this cartridge? And in the 708 and the 308, for instance, I've got a lot out of them. I've really found sweet spots and the perfect powders for certain loads. So I'm revisiting the 270 short mag today, and I have to figure out what the best powders are. So for instance, if you get several reloading manuals out and you go to the 270 short mag and 130 grain bullets, you're going to see a wide variety of different powders used and different velocities obtained. But if you go to Barnes published data on their website, with their 130 grain TTSX, they used up to 74 grains of MagPro to get their velocities. And that's significantly more powder, even for MagPro, than any other published data that I've seen. And so that should tell you kind of how I do it. I search around and I find probably the hottest load, but that's within safe max pressures in someone's manual. If Hornady says you can get 2,800 and Barnes says you can get 3,200, I'm going with Barnes. And I want to figure out what powder that they used, and I'll go by their max. I don't ever start at max. I start kind of in the middle of min and max, and I safely work my way up to max to make sure. Now every gun's different, and the people at Barnes might have just came underneath the SAMI max pressure with their gun, but my gun at my elevation or my temperature for today might actually exceed the max pressure. That's why they tell you to work your way up. So just be aware, I'm not picking numbers out of the blue. I'm not going crazy, but I am getting as hot as I think I can go to figure out what the potential is of this cartridge, and then I work my way up safely. So having said all that, I plan on stoking these things up. I'm not playing around today. I want to see what the 270 short mag is capable of. It has more case capacity than the 6.8 Western, so surely I should get more out of it if I find the right powder with the perfect case fill. And surely I can get those lighter bullets much faster than the 308. So that's the goal today. I have 5 ladder tests that I'm going to do today with 5 different bullets, 4 different powders, and we are going to see what the 270 short mag can do, and hopefully we're going to make the 270 short mag great again. Stay tuned. By the way, real quick, for those who are new to my channel, my 270 short mag is a Winchester XPR Sporter version with a wood stock, 24-inch barrel. I have on it tally rings and a Miopta Mio Pro HTR scope. Shots. The reason I only shot 3 with this one, I literally only had 3 bullets left, so kind of made my decision for me. That was with MagPro, and it was a little compressed and it was very full. And wow, that's more like it. That's more like the velocity that I wanted to get. Was there pressure signs? There was on the last one. Not terrible. There was a little bit of a resistance on the bolt lift, a slight cratering of the primer strike, and there was just the slightest ejector mark. So definitely too much. Slightest bit of pressure on the last load. But that's the kind of velocity I was expecting. All right, on to the next one. Reloder 23 gave me great velocity, just like I was hoping for. The last 2 had signs of pressure. The 4th one was kind of like the last one on the previous round, you know, just very slight signs of pressure. The 5th one, the bolt lift was noticeably harder to lift up, so too far. Definitely do not go with that one. So I'll probably back up to a half grain under the 4th load, but I thought I got pretty good velocity. There isn't really any reason to walk down here other than I just given the barrel a chance to cool off. So, not that it means anything, but there's where all my shots from today have hit. All in the deer. So far, so good. All right, got the barrel cooling down a little bit. It's starting to rain, and I'm afraid I'm gonna get rained out here. So I think I'm gonna skip the hot cores. Stay tuned. If you see him on the video, I went back to him, but I really want to see if I can get over 3,000 feet per second with the 165 Accubond long ranges with Vidivore 570. So I think I'm gonna skip. Once this barrel cools down, I'm gonna skip the hot cores and come back if I can. But speaking of the load I just did with Grand Powder, the 140 Accubonds, in this case, the last 2 had a heavy bolt lift. Besides the heavy bolt lift, there wasn't that many signs. It wasn't that bad, but a heavy bolt lift is definitely a sign. The 3rd of those 5 loads, I would say would be where I would stay at. And in all honesty, it didn't jump much in velocity past there. There was no jump in velocity because of pressure. But because of that heavy bolt lift on the last 2, I would come back to that 3rd one. But I'm pretty happy with it. I did it. 31.26 was that last load. Was there pressure? On the last load, there was the slightest bit of pressure. but nothing like some of the ones before that I've done. The last two with the 140s and the Grand powder, and the last one in both the CX and the Terminal Ascent had a little bit of pressure. This one I would say had a little bit less than that. So slightest, you know, cratering on the primer, slightest little mark. Bolt lift had the slightest bit of pressure, but it wasn't bad at all. So you might drop back one and go with that fourth load. 3126 with just the slightest bit of pressure. Pretty happy. But I would take it back to the fourth one, and if it was hot weather, I would kind of work your way up again just to verify. But you know what? I did it. Vidivore N570 will get you over 3,000 feet per second with a 165 bullet and a 270 short mag. If you want to see what it looks like, here's the target. So yeah, it's all in the deer still. All right, I'm back here. It started raining pretty heavy, and I had to just get all the camera gear out of the way and the chronograph out of the rain, and I wasn't able to finish that last group, unfortunately. But I do want to kind of go over some of the numbers with you. So I only shot 3 of the 130 grain CXs because that's literally the last 3 bullets I had. So the first one was 32.76, second one 33.68, fourth one was 34.35. I did see signs of pressure on that last shot. Now those 3 were a full grain apart, so it's possible you could back up to a half grain, but I'd probably recommend going with that second group. And so I got 33.68. I was very happy with that. Once again, more testing is needed. You would definitely want to test it in a little bit warmer conditions. Maybe if it was up in the 70s or 80s, definitely do this again, but once again, start low and creep your way up, you know. But 33.68 on that second load. Nice, very happy with that. On the 136 grain Terminal Ascents with Reloder 23, once again, very happy with it. The 5 loads, starting from my starting load to my max load, 3234, 3299, 3300, 3326, and 3371. The last load of that was similar to the 130 CXs. I did have enough pressure signs that I would back off of that. So I would definitely back up to that fourth shot, which was 3326. So 136 grain bullet, 3326. Very happy with that, very happy with that. 140 grain Accubonds with Grand powder. From my starting load to my max load, I got 3254, 3266, 3348, 3336, 3348. Now this one, I will tell you, was not directly out of a manual because I wanted to use Grand powder and I couldn't really find anything. On Hodgdon's manual that they send out, they used Grand in the 6.8 Western. And so I based it off the 6.8 Western, changed it just a little bit. The last 2 rounds fired here, I believe, had too much pressure. So I would actually back up to that third shot, which was 33.48. But if you look at the velocities, they didn't go up past there. So there wasn't a jump in velocity, which you definitely see in pressure. But the bolt lift was enough on the last 2. I wouldn't do it again. So that third shot with Grand at 33.48 with a 140 grain bullet, fantastic. And that's like outstanding. Definitely want to revisit that one when it's warmer and see how it acts. But Grand, yeah, Grand's got some heat there. Grand did really good. The 150 grain, that's the last group I shot, and unfortunately I only got the first one out, which was 31.28 with a 150 grain bullet. I'll have to go back later and shoot the last 4 to see how they do. And then the 165 grain Accubond long ranges with N570, I did it. Finally. From starting load to max load, I got 2872, 2961, 3084, 3098, and 3126. Now, if you notice those dramatic jumps on the first 3, I was actually jumping by 2 grains. And then the last 2 were only half grain jumps. Now, there is no published data that I could find for this. And so I saw something on a forum, and then I talked to another reloader, and then I saw what somebody got with the 6.8 Western using this same powder and bullet. And I put all that together, and I actually started really low, like, let's see, 5 grains lower than my max load. So the starting load to the max load, there was 5 grains of difference. So since I wasn't basing it off published data, I started really low, made big jumps, but ended up at 3126. That very last load, once again, did have enough pressure signs that I would back off. So I would probably go with that 4th load, and it was 3098. So I did it. Finally found a powder with 165 grain Accubond long ranges in the 270 short mag that got me over 3,000 feet per second. Definitely want to revisit this. I definitely want to finish the Spear Hot Core rounds, but I want to go back and tinker with some of these just a little bit. But this gave me very valuable information, and I definitely saw where my gun had limits, and I saw where pressure started, and I feel really good about it. But basically, I'm really happy. I mean, I got 3,300 plus on the 130s, the 136, and the 140s. Really good. And then on that 165, I got over 3,000. So I feel like this is a better representative of what the 270 short mag can do. I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you have a 6.8 Western? How does this compare to some of the results you have? Or do you have a 270 short mag? Have you used any of these powders with any of these bullets? I'd love to know comments on it. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. More content like this coming out. If you have any recommendations with a 270 short mag, I'd love to hear about it. And until next time, guys, take care.